There are forces on Earth capable of changing the terrain, creating or obliterating entire islands, and causing natural transformations on a global scale. Hundreds of millions of years ago, these same forces began to form the first terrestrial landscapes, spreading various minerals throughout the primary rock. These forces are so mysterious that even the best researchers, equipped with the latest technology, cannot predict when they will once again exert their powerful effects on the planet. As you might have guessed, I'm talking about volcanoes. Thanks to movies and television, most of you already have an idea of what they are and how dangerous they can be. Some of you, in fact, may have even seen these monsters up close and personal. Currently, there are more than 1,000 volcanoes in the world. About 500 of them are active, meaning that at any moment they can wake up and erupt. Eruptions occur when magma comes up to the surface. The gases trapped in the magma then escape into the atmosphere. Next, the magma turns into lava, which can devastate the surrounding areas in a matter of hours, as the speed of a lava flow can reach several meters per second, and its temperature exceed 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1,200 Celsius. It would seem that life existing anywhere close to these geological giants should be simply impossible. But what if I told you it isn't so? In ancient times, people living near volcanoes believed that gods lived deep inside these exploding mountains. Millennia have now passed, and scientific research has reached the point where people can finally meet the mystical inhabitants of these mounds of eruptitious exuberance. In the 1980s, in and around volcanoes, bacteria were discovered that live at temperatures exceeding the boiling point of water. At the time, this discovery was astonishing and inconceivable, as the structure of DNA had been shown to be destroyed at a much lower temperature of 176 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 80 Celsius. But these bacteria not only did swimmingly well in the scorching heat, they also, astoundingly, died when placed in cold water. Small underwater volcanoes found on the ocean floor at a depth of between 2 to 4 kilometers also turned out to be particularly rich in biodiversity. The temperatures around these volcanoes is well above the DNA-destroying, life-killing level. Additionally, the deep-sea water pressure there is crushingly enormous. And to top it off, the water itself is saturated with numerous dangerous heavy metals, poisonous hydrogen sulfide, and a variety of other noxious and toxic substances. Nevertheless, around 400 different species make their home in the areas around these gas and lava-spewing geological formations. And in addition to the various unicellular organisms, this hardy crowd also includes a variety of worms, shrimps, crabs, and sea snakes. And the surprises don't end there either. More recently, in the crater of the undersea Cavachi volcano in the Pacific Ocean, at a depth of 45 meters, scientists discovered something truly astonishing. While surveying the depths of the Pacific Ocean, some National Geographic field researchers decided to look at what was happening near the little-known Cavachi volcano, the eruption of which in 2003 resulted in the appearance of a new island on world maps. After lowering a submersible camera to a depth equal to the height of a 17-story building, right into the opening of the crater, they were treated to a spectacle that surpassed their wildest expectations. In the crater of the Cavachi volcano, life is flourishing. There are huge shoals of fish, great numbers of various rays, and swarms of jellyfish. Such a fantastic picture puzzled the scientists. All these creatures seem totally at ease in these seemingly inhospitable conditions, swimming carelessly in the blistering hot, highly acidic water. As if that weren't surprising enough, when watching the recording, the researchers were utterly bewildered to see several species of sharks of all things. This discovery was truly staggering. The existence of some bacteria in this unforgiving environment could still somehow be explained, but no one could even remotely suspect that such complex organisms as sharks could adapt to these harsh and forbidding conditions. There is as yet no plausible answer to the question as to why the animals chose this particular place as their habitat. But despite their bizarre choice of living arrangements, it looks as though these creatures are doing more than well enough. Having somehow managed to adapt, they've become the sole possessors of this precarious environment, in fact thriving on all of the vital resources it offers. It remains to be seen, however, how long they'll be able to enjoy their deep-sea idyll. As you've probably guessed, it would take just a single minor eruption of such a volcano to wipe out all nearby life. All those schools of fish, myriads of rays and jellyfish, groups of sharks and other animals, including bacteria, would shuffle off this mortal coil in a matter of minutes. But these brave, death-defying creatures made their choice, though unwittingly, to live on top of a powder keg. If several representatives of a few widely distributed species suddenly disappeared, it probably wouldn't be the greatest tragedy for Mother Earth, unlike the sudden disappearance of mankind, or worse, all life on the planet. Believe it or not, volcanoes could bring about just such an event, or to be more precise, supervolcanoes could. Out in the great expanses of North America, in the U.S. state of Wyoming, lies Yellowstone National Park, one of the country's top natural landmarks. This site's unsurpassed beauty and plethora of wildlife attract millions of tourists every year. But this abundance of natural splendor could disappear in a split second. The majority of Yellowstone Park is located on top of the Yellowstone caldera. In simpler terms, it is in the crater of a giant supervolcano, one which occupies an area of more than 1,700 square miles. That's 4,400 square kilometers. Think of it as 420,000 soccer fields. This immense feature that underlies the park was only recently discovered in the second half of the last century, thanks to satellite photography. Even now, it turns out a huge bubble of magma sits ominously 5 miles below the surface, with the temperature of its molten contents reaching a staggering 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit or 815 Celsius. This discovery caused quite a lot of excitement and obviously consternation among volcanologists. After all, if such a giant suddenly became active, all life on the planet would be in jeopardy. During studies of the Yellowstone supervolcano and its geological history, researchers discovered that this monster has erupted several times in the past. As a result of one of these eruptions, several million years ago, 90% of the territory of the North American continent was covered in volcanic ash. Currently, the Yellowstone caldera is ringed with a dozen seismological and thermal research stations that record every minute change in the supervolcano's activity. The scientists studying this geological monstrosity understand better than anyone that should the Yellowstone supervolcano wake up, life as we know it today might well be over. And there are plenty of reasons to consider this a real possibility. The intervals between eruptions have been getting shorter after each occurrence. True, given the geological scale of these intervals, at first glance this information has no practical significance for us humble human beings. Taking into account that the Yellowstone supervolcano erupted 2 million years ago, then 1.3 million years ago, and finally 600,000 years ago, the U.S. Geological Society forecast that the next awakening of this volcanic megamonster should occur no earlier than 20,000 years from now. However, due to increased activity observed from the volcano recently, the calculations have changed, and the new forecast is extremely disturbing. The latest calculations showed that a new catastrophe could be expected as early as the year 2000.